Larb was always a central part of that family gathering. Hi, I'm Aria, and I'm going to be showing you today how to make larb. Larb is kind of like a meat salad from Laos. It's kind of the national dish in a way. It can be made out of chicken, pork, beef, duck, fish. Today we'll be making one out of pork. So as a quick tip, usually sticky rice is cooked in a bamboo steamer. But if you don't have one, you can use a regular steel steamer, but you just line the top with parchment paper, and that's where you put the rice on top of. Another quick tip is when you're toasting your rice, make sure to keep moving the pan so that it evenly toasts the rice and so it's not just brown on one side. A very, very important element of larb is the ground rice. And in order to achieve this, you could use a spice grinder or as well as a pestle and mortar. The beauty of larb to me is that it is an everyday dish. It's a dish for the common people. It's a dish for the wealthy. It's a dish for everyone. It's something that everyone can come around together and eat. It's a quick meal. It's eaten at room temperature, so it doesn't have to be heated up. It's a perfect dish for any type of day all year round. So I actually never lived in Laos, but I did grow up in the north of Thailand. In the north of Thailand, there's cuisine called Isan cuisine, which is influenced a lot by Lao cuisine. And when I was in Thailand, I actually spent some time in a monastery as a monk. The only way you eat as a monk is when you're given alms by the local villagers who will give you food when you walk around the local village. And very often that dish would be larb. So larb was a very common thing we would eat in the monastery. You would take it back to the monastery and you would share it with the rest of the monks. What I personally love about larb is not just the textures and the flavors, but the way it kind of connects me with my heritage, because I didn't grow up in Laos. But for me, whenever we would go back to visit or whenever we met with family around the world, larb was always a central part of that family gathering. So I was actually born in San Francisco because both my parents, although they grew up in Laos, they had to leave the country for different reasons. My father left to France from a young age, and my mother fled the country in the 70s during a socialist takeover because my grandfather was an ambassador and they were granted amnesty here in the US. Because of this, we never actually moved back to Laos while I was young. We would visit to see family, or some of the family that would still remain there. My background, I'm very much a third culture kid because I grew up in cultures and countries that weren't really my own. But it was great because not only was I able to learn and explore these different cultures, but at the same time, of course, my parents made sure to teach me the Lao culture through cuisine. This recipe is a great way for me to connect with that part of me. This entire process was really cool for me because not only am I able to learn how to make such an important Lao dish, but I was able to connect with my mom throughout this entire process, checking to make sure I was doing things right, cutting the radish right, making sure that all these different elements like the ground rice were incorporated to make sure this was as authentic as possible. For anyone that's growing up the way I did, where you're bouncing from country to country or just in a country that's not your own, sometimes you can feel a little lost, a little alienated. If you're moving country to country, you can feel like you're losing friends and you're being uprooted all the time. But looking back, I'm so thankful for it, and I think that my advice would be to just embrace it when you realize how lucky you are to not just have one home, but many homes.
Oh, yes!